Texas Congressman Mac Thornberry is chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. He's the only Texan, by the way, to ever hold that position of any party. It's nice to have you back on the program, Congressman.
Thanks for having me.
What do you think every American needs to know about Russia's moves?
That it's dangerous. For example, deploying this particular cruise missile is important because, one, it violates a treaty. Number two, it is militarily significant. And the lesson, I think, is that anytime you don't stand up to aggression, it will get worse. We started warning the Obama administration about this particular missile back in 2012. And I myself have had a number of meetings, written a number of letters about it, and they didn't ever really do very much. Well, if you don't do very much, it's going to get worse, and that's what we're seeing all around the world.
All right, so how do you put a stop to it?
Well, I think the sanctions discussions is interesting. The most important thing we ought to do is build up our own military. It was Churchill who said in '46, the thing the Russians respect most is military strength, and the thing that they respect the least is military weakness. So we can talk tough, we can do some sanctions. What's really going to matter is military strength. For example, more missile defense deployed in Europe might get their attention.
How difficult is it to do that?
Well, you got to have willing partners. We can do it, but you know, today Secretary Mattis is encouraging our NATO partners to spend more on defense, as he should. We need to spend more on defense too. We've been coasting for too long, and as we've been coasting, the Russians have become more aggressive, the Chinese have become more aggressive, the North Koreans are assassinating people and launching missiles, ISIS spreads, etc. So U.S. strength is the key to a safer world.
What you're talking about includes some time. You would need some time to get the money you're talking about to put the positions in place, right, when you're talking about military strength. In the immediate, though, with a Russian spy ship 30 miles off the coast of the United States, what should the administration do or Congress do immediately to deter Russia?
Well, don't underestimate that if we pass a defense budget in the next few weeks, it will be heard in the Kremlin. But the rest of the story is there are more of Russian activities that we can expose to let the public know more about what they are doing.
Like what?
And well,
like what?
Some declassification of some intelligence information on some of their activities. Now, they obviously want us to know that this ship is off the coast of Connecticut. If they wanted to hide it, they could, most likely. So they're wanting us to know that and to basically stick a finger in our eye. So we've got to be clear about what we will accept, what we won't, and make sure that our military forces have clear instructions about what they will accept and what they won't.
It's interesting you mentioned classified information and whether or not it should be declassified so the American public has a more accurate idea of what our adversaries may be up to. You know, Lucas Tomlinson at the Pentagon is the only one so far with the reports that the head of the Quds Force, Soleimani, is in Moscow right now. He is a very dangerous major player out of Iran. He shouldn't even be traveling according to the UN. He's sanctioned to not travel, but he's in Moscow. Yesterday he arrived. What's your reaction to that news?
Well, number one, these are two people who two countries that want to cause trouble for the United States, and they're talking together, which means even more trouble for the United States. Secondly, on the sanctions part, he's not supposed to travel under current UN sanctions, but he's doing it anyway. What are the consequences of that? And that's part of the reason all the sanctions talk may not be a full answer, because if there are no consequences to violating sanctions, then they'll just do more of it. Thirdly, first thing that comes to my mind, of course, is that Russia and Iran are in control in Syria. And so they may be talking about the path ahead there. In any event, it's not in our best interest for their intentions.
A quick final question for you, because declassification again came up. It's something that's related to the Mike Flynn story and resignations because of all these leaks. There's been calls to declassify the transcripts of phone calls that he had with the Russian officials or others have had with Russian officials. Would you fight for that? Are you speaking to people about getting some more declassified information so the American public has a better idea of what actually happened or did not happen with some of these phone calls?
Well, that depends entirely on what the status of any investigation may be. What I'm calling for is, as we look at what adversaries are doing around the world, we tend to overclassify those things, and to be more explicit about what the Russians, Chinese, and others are doing, I think would be helpful to the American people to see the way that the world is moving, and that is in a more dangerous direction.
Well, we would certainly like some more access to that, but we also respect classified information. And so, Congressman, we look forward to having you back when we can speak about some of those issues openly in front of the American public. Thank you so much for your time.
Great, thanks.